Hello everyone. It's fantastic to have Chen Keshi here. He's professor at Peking University and the director of China Urban Design and Research Center and the chief designer of China Reconstruct Urban Design and Research Institute. Professor Chen graduated from the School of Architecture, Tsinghua University in 1988 and obtained his PhD degree from the School of Social Science at the University of Edinburgh. Professor Chen is the chief designer of Shuma Town of Sichuan, the world's best example of post-disaster construction. The chief designer of Zhuhai Opera, which is the only opera built in the sea in China. The chief designer of Luneng International Tourism Town in Tibet, which is a key project of Guangdong Province. The design of Shenzhen Bay Super Headquarters Scheme, which won the first prize in international bidding competition. He is the author of Urban Design Clear Sky, The City's Imagination, Urban Design An Ancient Town, Wencheng Green New City, and many others. Professor Chen serves as planning consultant of many Chinese provinces and cities government. He's the consultant of People's Government of Tibet Autonomous Region and a member of Shenzhen Internationalization City Construction Advisory Committee. I'm very excited to hear what you've got to show us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's my honor to have a lecture in Slade, UCL. Actually, 2 months ago, I have discussed with Andrew about this lecture, and Andrew was warmly welcome me to come here to deliver this subject about Tibetan. As what you already knew, I'm an architect, practice in China, and I also as a professor in Peking University. But to choose this subject is, for me, is quite important because I think for the last 5 years, I dedicated my most of energy and study concerning with Tibet, because I in charge a major project in Tibet called the Luneng Tourism Town. This is one of the biggest investment during a half century in Tibet. So today I try to use the first half of time to introduce my research about the elements of Tibetan art and architecture, and the rest of some time I introduce the 3 projects I made in Tibet. So now I use a group of picture to show what Tibet look like. Did anyone have been Tibet in this room? Did any? A few. That's great. Tibetan is one of the most interesting places I have been. I already go to most of places in this world, I think. But during the last 30 years, I make myself with my students more than 30 times to visit Tibet. So I feel which is so good opportunities for me to have a chance to learn what the Tibetan lifestyle and the philosophy and art history. And this picture show, which is called Ali. It's the oldest Tibetan kingdom come from is we call the Guge dynasty. So also Ali is one of the most beautiful place in Tibet. I noticed a few of students have been Tibet. I wish you have been Ali because this is the highest altitude sea level place. So most people feel not suitable to go to such high altitude place. So this is the Ali. And this picture shows a large part of Tibetan is the south part of Tibetan. So Ali is the north part of Tibetan, and this is quite close to the south. It's a lot of meadow, and it's quite actually the altitude is a little bit low than the north part of Tibetan. So normally we talk Tibetan is north part of Tibetan and south part of Tibetan. So the border is from Lhasa and the city called Zakata. So Lhasa, north part of Lhasa, is the landscape is quite different. The Ali, the part of Ali is without any trees. So the local government try to encourage some scientists to plant the plants in that place. If anyone can successfully plant one tree, the government will give about 1 million RMB. That means about 100,000 RMB if anyone can successfully plant one tree. So the environment in that area is quite hot. So this is the situation of north part of Tibetan. You can see the building. The roof is flat, and they use stone to build the buildings. So this is north part of Tibetan. We look. Then we talk about landscape. Of course, Tibetan have the most beautiful landscape, I think, in China. I feel that it's quite difficult for me to love another place after, I visited Tibet so many times. So after working in Tibetan project in last 5 years, I was most interested to visit another place in China. So this also is question is when many times when you visit Tibet, you see the kind of scenery of the beautiful Tibetan lake and the mountains. You were shocked by the Tibetan landscape. And this picture is I take in the place. It's called Lingzhi, which is south part of Tibetan. It's close to India, the border town. So you see the landscape is quite different with north part of Tibetan. And this is also another picture about Lingzhi. Lingzhi is settled by a minority group of Tibetan called Gongbu. So as most people recognize, they have 5 different parts of nationality of Tibetan. They are settled down in different places, including called Kamba, which is live close to the Sichuan province, and the Baima, the White Horse, live in the east part of Tibetan, and the Jiarong, another kind of group. Then the place I talk today is what my design project locate is in here. It's called Lingzhi. It's east-south part of Tibet. So it's quite famous for the beautiful landscape, especially in the spring. So this is the picture of a spring in Lingzhi. So you see these 2 ladies their dress is quite different because this we call the Gongbu, Tibetan minority group. Then the typical landscape of the Tibetan is crystal clean water and the eye and the blue sky. So I normally have a problem to judge the distance in Tibetan. So when you see the distance in Tibetan, probably, for example, is 1 kilometers, but in fact it's probably 5 kilometers longer because the ice too clean. So you never get used to. So this my problem is in the site we designed the lake, which is it's more than 2 kilometers wide, but I always feel that lake is too short. It's about 500 meters wide. So, but this is the situation of a Tibetan. It's always very, the ice blue. Of course, the Tibetan history, especially talk about architecture, we're going to mention about the Budala Palace, which is the place of Dalai Lama and the authority of ancient Tibetan for at least 1,200 years. And this building also be built at least of 1,200 years continually, start from 700 BC and until about 100 years ago, it's continued to build this building. And this is one of heritage of Tibetan. And Johan Temple is one of the main temple in Tibetan. This temple is so important because it keep the golden sculpture of释迦牟尼. They call the 12 years old释迦牟ni's statue, the golden statue. So this temple is most of Tibetan for their whole life. They must, to go to Johan Temple at least once. Some Tibetan people, they are spent 3 years, more than 3 years, from hometown and come to worship this temple because they every step they're going to worship and step by step. So take about 3 years to come. This is a common situation. So every morning, the Tibetan people surround this temple. Of course, we'll discuss a little bit about the cosmos of Tibetan, traditional cosmos. So this is a painting which be said was made by 700 BC, the princess of Tang dynasty called the Chen, the princess of Chen, that bring to the painters bring to the Tibetan. They draw this picture. This picture is show the master planning of the Lhasa. So in their cosmos, they think the landscape, the mountains and the rivers, which is a goddess of evil. So they make the temple, the Buddhist temple, located in the key place of this landscape. That means will keep the the evil, keep the surrounding area in peace. So the Johan Temple is located in the heart of this goddess, the hot place. So you see that the central place is the Johan Temple's location. And in traditional Tibetan cosmos, they believe the Mandala city, which is the paradise. So this picture is from Budala wall painting. It shows the picture of Mandala city. I will take that is quite a part of this picture. Show they have a different level of the mandala. So according to the Tibetan traditional cosmos, the mandala is the ideal town of the living. So this is the Tibetan tanka to show the plan of mandala city. This is quite important because most of Tibetan building is built in according to this cosmos. And also, I found a little sculpture to explain the mandala city. This is a gift by the Chinese Emperor Chen in the 17th century, given to the Dalai Lama, the fifth of Dalai Lama, as a gift to show the idea of the mandala city. Then, in the blog, we briefly introduce the landscape and the traditional cosmos of Tibetan. It is quite important because the rest of research about the elements of art and architecture is come from to the kind of understanding of the traditional cosmos of Tibetan. And also this kind of cosmos come from a very special landscape and history of Tibetan culture. So back to the topic of today, the elements of the Tibetan art and architecture. In the last 5 years, my students and myself visit Tibetan more than 30 times. And in this long series of research, I will make a conclusion about our study about the Tibetan traditional art and architecture. The most important element is light, color, space, and the 210. So today I'm going to focus to discuss with all of you about my research for these 4 elements. To understand these 4 elements is the key to understand the art and architecture of Tibetan. So this is a picture I take in the one temple of Tibetan to show the light go through the window, come to the inside of the building. This is a typical situation of Tibetan architecture, to use the light and to create the kind of the whole picture of inside the building. And this is a corridor of the Zhou-Han Temple. Also show the lighting goes through the corridor to create a kind of environment. And this picture is described the lighting come from the skylight and goes through the center of a building, and normally the light is directly come to the statue of the Buddha. So in this room, the light will come to the window to go directly to the statue of Buddha. So apart from the light we saw from the heaven, from the high window, and the rest of the place is quite dark. So this is why I understand when you visit the Tibetan temple, you have a very strong feeling, be touched by the lighting. Also, the lighting creates the shape of a space. So from an architecture design of view, it is quite important, because normally, we come to the room in nowadays, which is the illuminating light, the lighting is quite, equal to illuminating everywhere. But in Tibetan, they use the sunlight to create a kind of very dramatic situation of the space. So this is photo also show the room. The light creates a kind of shape of the space. So you will see most of Tibetan building, they use the sky window to borrow light from the high place to the room. Also the lighting, we talk about illumination in Tibetan, because the sunlight is quite strong. So when you go to Tibetan, you must wear the sunglasses, because the light is unbearable, it's too strong. So window normally is quite small, very small size of window. The light can, create a very bright illumination. So this is a typical kind of the window in Tibetan, because the weather, Tibetan, the wall normally is very, very thick. So this is the wall of Buddha Palace. They just leave a very, very tight of window to give the light go through. So this is a staircase in the Buddha Palace. With one of my students, we spent the whole morning to make research about this staircase, because it's so dramatic. So in this staircase, I will feel, so what they are use the lighting to create a kind of dramatic situation of the space. So when you go through this staircase, you will feel the lighting is a kind of guiding your behave. You follow the lighting to go through the up and the forward, upward. This picture is so important because in my building design, I will use this idea in modern building. So you will see some of my design, including some buildings I designed right now is I very, very carefully to borrow this idea of how to create the lightings, use a kind of special way. Like this picture, we can't see actually the light is directly goes to somewhere, but you will see the light come from heaven, come from the high place, that goes to the staircase, come to the room. And another corridor is also show the light from somewhere far from away, and you through the long corridor and forward the lighting and forward, upward, they give you a kind of feeling. It's a kind of religion feeling, also a kind of, I think, artistic approach. So I think, you will always be touched by the architecture and the art approach in Tibetan buildings. We talk about light, then we also will talk about the color. In Tibetan architecture, the color is one of most important elements. First impression, when you visit Tibet, you were shocked by the color of the building. They use a lot of very strong colors, like red, yellow, even black. So this is one of the most character of Tibetan architecture is the color. Also, the color is come from a real material. They use a kind of very unique material to create a color of architecture. First of all, we see the color of white. In Tibetan tradition, most of building, they use the white color. From this picture, you will see they are not ordinary finish of the wall. It's use a kind of, they call the white mold to mix with water and to put the material from the top. That is, create a kind of very special finish of the wall. So you can see every year they will put a kind of white mold mixed with water and to link through the top of the wall to the bottom. So this is quite special. We use this technique in the new buildings as well. This is a white wall of Budala place in Lhasa. So you see the finish of a wall is so character of the material is quite different with the other place you see in China or in the rest of place. This is a village we worked in Tibetan. You can see the most of the local Tibetan building use a white color as a finish. So this is the most important color used in Tibetan. And also for the Tibetan people, they give the color special feelings, special meaning. The color made from a local white mold have a long history. Most of Tibetan settlement, they use this kind of material. So the Tibetan people worship the white color is closely relating to the local religion called the Ban religion. They believe the Tibetan people and their worship of holy mountains and the slow mountain. So have a lot of slow mountain surround and with the white building. You can see this is a typical Tibetan village situation. Another color in Tibetan is the right. So the right color we see in two different material. One is the mood. White also is a kind of white mood. Another kind of material is we call the White House grass. Actually, it's a willow branch. They cut the willow branch, they mix with red mood, and to create kind of texture of a very special kind of finish. So this material especially used in the religious building is forbidden to use in another building. So in Tibet you will see the red color with this kind of material. It is specially used in the temple, also in kind of high level religion temples. In Tibetan cosmos, in the mandala, they have 5 kind of colors: white, red, yellow, blue, and black. Every color they have a special meanings for their religion and the belief. So we already see the white and the red color. So this is another kind of finishing of the White House grass in the part of Budala temple. You see the kind of finish, and this is the detailed about the White House grass, the material used in Budala temple. And also the interior, the inside of the room, they use a red color as decoration as well. And from this picture, you also see the black color used indoor as material. And the yellow as one of the most important color as well. As you know, the释迦Muni, the Buddha, wear of yellow clothes. So most of monks in Tibet, they wear yellow clothes. So yellow is a kind of very special material in Tibet. And this is a building especially painted in yellow, and which is one of the most important library building in Budala place. So the color have a special meanings for the Tibetan architecture. This picture shows the 4 different finishes about the yellow color wall. So this is the same building. So the same building, they have 4 kind of different material and finish. And the yellow also represents the golden. So this is Johan temple's courtyard. You can see the yellow also represents the golden in the window and the wall. Of course, the roof, they use the golden, the real material of golden. Then is black. So black normally we paint surround the door and the window to avoid the evil to come. So black also gives a very special meaning in the Tibetan architecture. This picture shows the inside the temple. They use the more rich color to decorate the room. They use such a very rich color. Also, I notice this color is mixed, so fashion, so delight when you see this color. So I sometimes I wonder the kind of talent for the Tibetan people to choose the different colors. When I visit some fashion house like LV, Keshi, they use a similar kind of color mix. Especially you see the yellow, this kind of yellow and the blue. Also, other colors mixed together. It's quite actually update, quite fashionable. You see some of these colors. So color is one of the most important equipment to deliver the information of the religion and belief, but also is deeply touch the people when you inside this space. So this is the typical color of the Tibetan building. And also I find this picture about the two Tibetan lady. The one is, this is north part of Tibetan. They are white, yellow, and white decoration. And that is we call the Gongbu, is in the Ningzhi, south part of Tibetan. The color is quite different. Then we talk about light color is the most important elements of Tibetan architecture. Then we discuss about the space. This is a wall painting which collected in one of the museums in Paris to show the master planning of Lhasa. So you see in the center is the Buddha temple, and this is Johan temple. This is Buddha place and the Johan temple. But if you carefully watch this painting, you will find the mandala, the kind of the cosmos, is the basic thinking about the planning of the building. This is Johan Temple's plans. You can see the heart of this plan is the Buddha, but is mandala in the center, which is the square, and the Buddha's sculptures located in the most important place, and the lighting goes through the high skin window to come to the room, and surrounding by the different function of room. This is a courtyard of Johan Temple, which shows a kind of traditional space of Tibetan architecture. This is one of Kochart. They hold a ceremony of the festival in the Kochart. So to understand the space of Tibetan architecture, we need to understand the mandala, the cosmos. They are not designed the building according to the so-called function of today. The design building according to the understanding of the mandala, the kind of traditional cosmos. Then, in the center of this photo is Johan Temple, the mandala, the cosmos of the heart of the city is located in that place. Then surrounded by the different courtyard, and every courtyard is one of the mandala, the space. So this is inside the Johan Temple, the one of the courtyard, and we closely look the space of the Johan Temple. You will see the heart of this temple is the mandala located at the center. Rest of space is surround that center of the mandala. So this is the most of space we see in Tibetan buildings. The rest of elevation we'll talk is about the two terms, the pattern of the decoration. Pattern of decoration, if we carefully read the material, they describe the most materials come from the history of the Chinese architecture and the part of come from India architecture. So we also find the meaning of the symbol, including language, peace, or a kind of wish. Very rich content of the painting and the pattern show the very rich feeling about describing about architecture and the religion and wish. So these two pictures show one of furniture I collect from Tibetan. It's so dramatic in the painting of its staircase of the sculpt, the wood case. So I think it's about 100 years ago in Tibetan, local craftsmen to make this. So I was shocked by the detail and the color of these paintings. The rich pattern of the Tibetan architecture is one of the major characters of Tibetan buildings. So when we design the building now, we at the beginning we are not very focused about this kind of decoration. Then we find that without this kind of rich pattern and decoration, it's hardly to recognize the architecture of Tibetan. So in the late stage of my design for that tourist town, we largely benefit by the local craftsmen to make this kind of decoration for us. So if you see this kind of decoration, you will feel they create the space use the lighting, create space, use so many different color, try to create a universal of their, think ideally, the mandala kind of world. So in Tibetan, they are not simply create a building, they create a universal. So they believe the universal, the outside of world, is represent the universal of a people. So they have two universal. One is people itself, and another is outside world. So they try to link these two universal together. So all behalf of creation is try to liaising the two universal together. So from this kind of detail about architecture, you can see the element of Tibetan architecture is so important to create art approach for the Tibetan buildings. So also you can see the detail about this kind of decoration partly come from the tradition of India. And also from the Middle East and some other place. But if we make the conclusion for the traditional Tibetan architecture, we will see the lighting, the color, and the space decoration is the four major elements to create the art and architecture approach in Tibet. So rest of time I will show my work for major project in Tibet. The Lingzhi we mentioned, from this map you can see is the border town. You know, this corner is India, so it's a border town between India and China, and that is Lhasa. Majority place we call the north part of Tibetan. It's mountains, slow mountains, and this is the dark area is a border between Nepal and the Tibetan. So that is a very small point. The yellow point is Bhutan. It's a kingdom of the Buddhist kingdom between Tibetan and India. And this one picture is just taken by one of my friends recently. This is quite a unique picture because it's difficult to take. That slow mountain called Nanja Bawa is one of the most beautiful slow mountain in China. So they said have the most beautiful 10 most beautiful slow mountain in China. That's called number 1. It's called Nanja Bawa. So if anyone in the future will visit Tibetan, you must find the opportunity to see these mountains. But for myself, as you know, I already be that area more than 30 times. Only one time I be able to see this mountain, to see this peak of the Nanja Bawa, because it's so majority time is covered by the clothes. So the clothing is most of the time. I think this picture taken in early of autumn. Only this season you can see this slow mountain. Then follow this road is go to the valley. It's called the Lulang Valley. It's the town I designed in that valley. So this is a picture taken in the springtime. In the far away is the mountain we call the Nanjiabawa. Then that valley is called Lula. So this is the theory of the springtime of Lula. So this is the summertime of the Lula. We have a small village located in that valley. Before we built this tourist town, actually it's quite a rural area. Why we were going to build this tourist town? Because this is a major road between Lhasa and Sichuan province and Yunnan province. So this is a very important tourist area. The government invested about 5 billion RMB to build this tourist town. Try to create a major area for the tourist industry to try to create a kind of new industry in Tibet. So as most of people know, Tibetan is difficult to create other industries. Also, we are not encourage them to develop any industry to create pollution in Tibet, because Tibetan is the most river, including Yellow River, Yangtze River, and the river in India, they come from Tibetan. So we very carefully to protect Tibetan is not polluted by the industry. This is the town. It look like this is the overview, the valley. This valley is surrounded by the Slade mountain, and we created a new tourism town close to the lake. This is architectural master planning to show. This is one of the 5-star hotel. It's the central area of tourist town, and including the art gallery, the opera house, the Tibetan traditional opera house, and the few hotels. And we also built a new government, the county government, in traditional Tibetan style. So that building is one of government building in Tibet. They said this is one of the most expensive government hall, city hall in Tibetan. In the last 100 years, they never built such luxury house in Tibetan. This is the trade, the commercial trade we built in a tourist town in Tibetan style. And this is a view from another side to see that tourism town in Lula. Also, I use a lot of elements of Tibetan religion to create special symbol of the Tibetan theory of architecture. This is one of the gate of we call the mandala, the gateway to the mandala, the ideal world for Tibetan. So it's quite dramatic because most people didn't understand at the beginning. One of engineers tried to overthrow, take this structure away, but finally they understand this is a very important symbol of Tibetan architecture. So we also use a lot of decoration of traditional Tibetan buildings. We find some artists, local artists, is actually originally they are farmers in the very rural village in Tibet, but they have this kind of talent to draw the traditional pictures. This is their work. It's not designed by us, but it's made by the Tibetan farmer. So this shows the hotel we designed. This is a general picture of that hotel. We built already. It's a 5-star hotel. This also is very few 5-star hotel in Tibet. We wish all of you can make effort to visit this area and also to live in this hotel. And this is another part of the Lulan tourism town. We show some detail about the buildings. It's be built by end of this year. That means it's last month for this project to be finished. And this is the tourist center. We also use some the new we call the modern style of Tibetan architecture. This is one of the modern building I designed for this village. Also, you show the kind of space and the lighting used in the modern building. And this is a school, the preliminary school. We use a courtyard as traditional Tibetan courtyard in the modern buildings. Same kind of courtyard, and the lighting and color and decoration used in the modern 5-star hotel. This is one courtyard of a 5-star hotel, and some detail about decorations. So we benefit from the tradition of Tibetan architecture a lot. So this is why I sometimes think compared a kind of a long history, long art history of the Tibet, at least more than 1,000 years. The modern time is quite a short period, so we need very, very carefully to make that kind of art history to continue, to move into the modern area, the modern period. So this is quite different with most of architects in China today. They would like to use a kind of completely different language or architecture in Tibetan. But for myself, I think I would prefer to use too many modern elements or material or design idea. I would like to majority for myself, I talk to myself, it's more than 80% of the material idea elements is borrowed from the tradition. But this is quite hard, because even some of authority, senior leaders in Tibetan, they are encourage us, to design the modern buildings in Tibet. Also, they like, even West style or other buildings in mainland China. So this is quite different attitude to treat the tradition and to treat the history of the Tibetan art. For myself as a designer, for this tourism town. I actually think if I can revival, reconstruction of the traditional Tibetan elements of art and architecture, this is my duty and my favor. So this is part of finished part of this tourist town. I have been many tourist towns in this world, including UK or Spain or other places. But I think this tourist town is one of the most beautiful tourist town in the world. So I was always thanks a lot about the tradition of Tibetan architecture. Also, interior design, we very carefully study about elements of Tibetan art and architecture, especially for the lighting, color, and organize of space. So these few pictures, you can see what we actually, the impression of the study come from the tradition of the Tibetan art and architecture. So this is one of the reception space of hotel. It's finished in typical Tibetan color and space. And this is a joy. I actually, I'm not a painter, but I use this painting to describe this tourist town in a general, to show the general situation of the Lulan tourist town. And another building I introduced is the gallery in Ningzhi. It's close to finishing, maybe finish next month. It's an art gallery. We also use the traditional Tibetan elements in the modern building. So you will see in the color and the space and the lighting we use of Tibetan style. So we believe the elements of the Tibetan tradition architecture can be modernized, can be used in the modern architecture, and to support the modern architecture in Tibetan. So this is one of the most modern looks buildings in Tibetan. Most of Tibetan people see this building, they recognize this is a Tibetan building. So that means we take the elements of the traditional Tibetan art and architecture to give their a kind of new life and a modern approach. It's a kind of way to take the Tibetan culture can continue for the next 1,000 years. Finally, I show the proposal we give to the Tibetan government. It's a Tibetan house theater of Tibetan. But unfortunately, this building is stopped because the new authority is not like invest a theater in Lhasa. So this is just a proposal. But in this design proposal, it will show what we try to reuse some idea of traditional Tibetan architecture. Also, back to the original the elements of Tibetan architecture, the light, the color, and the space. So I especially like this picture. This picture try to reorganize a kind of space can show the approach of the Tibetan religion and the Tibetan feeling of the traditional culture. And the material, of course, in nowadays we can't continue use the traditional material. We use some new material, but we try to approach a kind of traditional understanding of the art and the architecture. So we use the elements of Tibetan architecture. We try to persuade them to accept this proposal. We wish one day we can see this be built. So this is all I try to deliver today about my research about the Tibetan elements of art and architecture. We hope all of you can make opportunity to visit Tibet in the near future. For my experience, I think the art and the architecture in Tibet have a lot of things to learn. And also, for most of artists and architects in China, they take Tibetan as a kind of a very special place to worship. Most of people, they take Tibetan art as the highest, the top, the material to learn. So we wish, of course, this is in London. It's far from away, but I encourage all of you and to make a chance to visit Tibet. And myself is be employed as a chief consultant of Tibetan Authority. If you have any difficulties, you can contact with me. Thank you very much.
Can you accept some questions?
Yes, please, yes.
Thank you for the talk. I was wondering about the kind of ideology of creating a tourist city, and with all this beautiful spaces you've created for kind of cultural activity, how much of the local kind of culture beyond art and kind of the aesthetic, but kind of people from the local environment kind of are involved within that idea of creating a tourist city? Like, because you said you've been to tourist cities in the UK as well. I'm not quite sure I understand what a tourist city is.
Yeah, tourism is a kind of industry. That's what we understand. Also, Tibetan is quite now is quite sensitive for the developer or the industry in Tibet, because the environment generally in Tibet, the environment is quite weak. So, in the last 20 years, the Tibetan government tried to develop a very different kind of industry in Tibet. But for most of leaders, Tibetan nowadays, they actually think to develop tourism is one of the way to keep the Tibetan economically growing. If we built a factory in Tibet that will largely influence the environment of the Tibetan ecology situation. So the Guangdong government, as well as other provinces like Beijing or Shanghai, they give money every year to Tibet to support the Tibetan, because the Tibetan which give the water to the other province. So to be benefit, the central government ask Guangdong province other rich place to give the financial support to Tibetan. In the last 20 years, they support Tibetan to develop the factory, the manufacturing local some different products, but they find it's largely influence the ecological situation. So Guangdong province government make decision to build this tourism town in that location as a kind of the reception town for the tourists, both the tourists. Because now the tourists come to that area, they enjoyed very much about the scenery, the beauty, but they can't find the hotel. So local Tibetan villagers also have no income. So this investment is quite important. It's give the opportunity of the whole region, the Tibetan people, to be benefit from the tourist industry. So this is a new kind of thinking about help Tibetan develop economical growing. In this case, also they build a road and build a highway and build the railway in the future to collect the Lingzhi with Lhasa. So this is, I think, the original idea of the government trying to make the tourism successfully exchange the other industry in Tibetan. Also, it is quite important for Tibetan government to see this tourism town use traditional Tibetan architecture. So this is the first time in Tibetan have an architect completely use Tibetan architecture language to build a town. This is more important, I think, for the Tibetan government, because nowadays you can see a lot of the buildings building Tibetan. You can't describe they are, what kind of style. They call the mainland China style. So this is actually of course it's quite sensitive subject for the local government. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was wondering, how does the investment in the creation of a tourist town benefit the local community of people living in Tibet?
Yes. Take example of a local village, which the town we built. They are quite benefiting in the last 5 years. They support the material, they take part in the construction, and their children have an opportunity to work in a hotel. Because the farming in Tibetan, in general, it is hard to continue. So the living standard in Tibetan is quite poor. We can't describe in detail how poor in Tibetan. If we see some medieval period movies in Europe, you can see this is nowadays situation in Tibetan. They have nothing in their room apart from very basic standard of living situation. So how to take this kind of society to be modernized is introduce tourism is probably one of the way to make them become a kind of modern living standard. So because of this tourism town be built in that area, more than 500 Tibetan family open the hotel. They call it family hotel, but it's kind of course, very limited income. But it is significantly they take part in the kind of modern step for the change of the life situation. Thank you.
Because of the time, maybe we better end. Thank you very much.